The situation at Ibrox is becoming more tense by the day. Pressure is mounting not just on Russell Martin, but on the entire leadership structure at Rangers Football Club. What once looked like a fresh project with potential is now spiraling into crisis, and the mood around the club has shifted from cautious optimism to deep frustration. Behind the scenes, key figures are weighing up their next move, and the chairman Andrew Kavanagh suddenly finds himself right in the eye of the storm. Supporters aren't just angry, they're exhausted. From poor results to baffling decisions off the pitch, fans feel like they've been strung along with promises that have delivered nothing. Russell Martin's position is becoming increasingly difficult to defend, especially after a string of lackluster performances that have left Rangers with their worst league start in nearly half a century. Even a narrow win over Livingston, sealed by a last-minute goal, did little to lift the gloom. If anything, it only highlighted how far off the pace this team is. But it's not just about what's happening on the pitch. Former players, pundits, and fans alike are beginning to point fingers higher up the chain. And let's be clear, when people like Derek Ferguson and Chris Boyd start calling for action, it speaks volumes. They're not just reacting to a bad run of form. They're reacting to a complete breakdown in the club's direction and identity. Ferguson didn't mince his words. He believes the Rangers board can no longer ignore the discontent and that it's time for Andrew Kavanagh and his closest advisors to show some backbone. His message was blunt: either front up to the fans or risk losing the support completely. The silence from the boardroom, despite growing protests and empty seats at Ibrox, has only made matters worse. The defeat to GK in the Europa League wasn't just damaging in terms of results. It exposed just how flat and disillusioned the fanbase has become. On a night that should have been buzzing with European energy, the atmosphere was lifeless. More than 12,000 seats were empty, and that image might stick longer than the scoreline. And then there's the managerial side of things. Russell Martin might still be in the job, but few would argue he's the right man to take Rangers forward. His tactics have been criticized, the performances have lacked identity, and the connection with the fans is all but broken. What was meant to be a fresh approach has turned into a stale, uninspiring mess. And yet, despite everything, Kavanagh continues to back him, at least publicly. That loyalty is becoming harder and harder to understand. It's not just a case of backing your man. It's starting to feel like stubbornness in the face of clear evidence that things aren't working. Now, the pressure is reaching a boiling point. Two huge away fixtures are coming up, Sturm in the Europa League and Falkirk in the Premiership. Those matches could define not only Martin's future, but also Kavanagh's credibility. Anything less than two strong performances and results might leave the chairman with no choice but to act. Fans have been patient. They've given this new era a chance. But there's a breaking point, and many believe it's already been crossed. What makes matters worse is the perception that the problems run much deeper than just the manager. Chris Boyd, never one to hold back, has made that crystal clear. He's shifted the spotlight to the club's hierarchy: sporting director Kevin Thelwell, head of recruitment Dan Perardi, and the wider leadership team. These figures were brought in with big expectations, many arriving from Everton during the summer, and so far, the return on that investment has been minimal. Boyd didn't just question the signings. He questioned the entire recruitment strategy. An £8 to £10 million gamble on Youssef Kemedy, a striker who has shown little sign of being up to the required standard, is now being used as the symbol of everything that's gone wrong. Fans were promised a new vision, a smarter approach to building a squad, and what they've seen instead is more confusion, more misses than hits, and a team that looks just as disjointed as ever. The so-called root and branch review of the football club was supposed to change that. It was meant to be a turning point, a thorough look at everything from top to bottom with the goal of rebuilding stronger. But months later, supporters are asking the same questions. Where's the outcome of that review? Where's the transparency? Where's the improvement? Right now, it all feels like another empty promise from a board that has too often said the right things but failed to follow through with action. And let's not forget how Martin was appointed in the first place. According to Boyd, the process was flawed from the start. Rangers took too long to make a decision, weighed up candidates who were far more experienced, and still landed on Martin, a manager who had been out of work and had little in the way of top-level pedigree. It looked like a decision driven by indecision, a club unsure of what it wanted, hoping a gamble would pay off. So far, that gamble has backfired. Now, the situation is starting to spiral. Every match feels like a must-win. Every press conference is filled with more questions than answers. And every time the team steps onto the pitch without conviction or clarity, the pressure grows. Supporters don't just want wins. They want direction. They want to believe in something again. And while a win against Livingston might have bought Martin a few more days, it certainly didn't win back the fans. The performance was toothless. The urgency was missing. The identity was nowhere to be seen. A stronger opponent might have taken all 3 points, and everyone knows it. That's what makes the current run so hard to watch. The signs of improvement just aren't there. To add another layer to this drama, Craig Bellamy has spoken publicly about trying to persuade Mikey Moore to commit his international future to Wales. Moore, currently on loan at Rangers from Tottenham, has already represented England at youth level. But through his grandparents, he's also eligible for Wales, and it's clear that national selectors are doing everything they can to win him over. Bellamy's comments revealed how competitive and intense those conversations are behind the scenes, even if he expressed frustration that it had become public knowledge. But it's also a reminder of the type of talent Rangers have in their squad, and how, despite all the chaos, some bright sparks remain. Still, the big picture is hard to ignore. Rangers are now at a crossroads. The manager's future is hanging by a thread. The board's authority is being questioned like never before. And the supporters? They've had enough of waiting. They want action. They want answers. They want a football club they can believe in again. As things stand, Russell Martin may still have time to turn things around. But that time is running out fast. A couple of wins before the international break could give him some breathing room. But anything less, and Andrew Kavanagh may finally be forced to make the decision he's been dreading. Even with all the noise surrounding Russell Martin and the board, it's the deeper cracks within the Rangers system that truly tell the story. The frustration pouring out of the stands week after week isn't just about poor form. It's about a club that feels stuck, repeating the same mistakes and expecting different results. There's a growing belief among supporters that the rot didn't start with Martin, and it certainly won't end with him. This goes back years of failed recruitment, years of inconsistent planning, and years of short-term thinking disguised as long-term vision. Take the current squad as an example. Built with decent investment on paper, but in practice, it's a group of players that lacks cohesion, intensity, and, most damning of all, belief. The summer window was meant to reset the tone, to bring in quality, hunger, and character. Instead, it looks like another mixed bag, with signings that haven't hit the ground running and others already drawing criticism. Rangers gambled big on Youssef Kennedy, but so far, he hasn't shown the level needed to lead the line for a club of this size. That's not on him alone. It's on those who scouted him, those who sanctioned the deal, and those who believed this was the right call for a team expected to compete on multiple fronts. Kevin Thelwell and Dan Perardi arrived at the club with big reputations, brought in from the Premier League with the promise of shaking things up. But right now, fans are struggling to see what exactly they've brought to the table. The recruitment looks uninspired, and the lack of a clear footballing identity suggests a disconnect between the manager and those at the top. There's a feeling that players are being signed without a clear plan of how they fit into the system, if there even is a system. That kind of disconnect is poison for any club trying to build success, and at Rangers, it's becoming all too familiar. Let's not forget, this was supposed to be a new era. After years of watching Celtic dominate domestically, this season was meant to mark a turning point, a chance to close the gap, to lay the foundations for something sustainable and strong. Instead, it already feels like another season slipping away before autumn has even properly settled in. The performances aren't just below standard, they're lifeless. And the fans, who turn up week after week with hope, are being repaid with performances that lack fire and ambition. It's not hard to see why Ibrox has been so quiet lately. A ground known for its intensity, its passion, and its ability to lift a team when it matters, now feels muted. The energy has been drained. Supporters are tired of shouting into the void. They're tired of waiting for something to click. And they're tired of a leadership team that seems more focused on damage control than actual progress. What makes it all more painful is the knowledge that Rangers can be better. The history, the fan base, the expectations, all of it points to a club that should be competing at the very top, not floundering through awkward wins and painful defeats. But none of that matters if there's no real vision guiding the ship. It's not about spending the most. It's about spending wisely. It's not about chasing flashy signings. It's about building a team with purpose and identity. Right now, it feels like Rangers are doing neither. And while it's easy to point the finger at Martin, and yes, his in-game management, team selection, and tactical setup have all been poor, it's the structure above him that deserves just as much scrutiny. If the board can't define what they want Rangers to be, how can any manager succeed? If the sporting department can't align its recruitment with a coherent style of play, how can any team build consistency? These aren't just questions from pundits. They're coming from the fans. The same fans who fill the stadium, who buy the shirts, who travel across the country and the continent following their club. And they're not getting the answers they deserve. In truth, this has been building for a while. The warning signs were there. The inconsistency, the revolving door of managers, the lack of succession planning. It's all part of a wider pattern. And the longer the club refuses to confront it, the worse it will get. Sacking Martin might buy some temporary relief, but if the same issues behind the scenes aren't addressed, nothing will really change. A new manager will inherit the same flawed squad, the same muddled recruitment, and the same unrealistic expectations with no proper support to meet them. Meanwhile, Andrew Kavanagh's position is becoming increasingly delicate. When he stepped into the chairman role back in June, he couldn't have imagined the level of crisis he'd be facing just a few months later. He's tried to project calm, to stand by his manager and avoid knee-jerk reactions. But there's a fine line between loyalty and stubbornness. And as things stand, he's in danger of losing the confidence of the very people he's supposed to lead. The scenes against GK and Hibernian were a warning. The empty seats, the angry banners, the silent stares. This is a fan base losing faith, not just in the manager, but in the board's ability to fix what's broken. And that's what it comes down to. Trust. The fans want to believe again. They want to feel like the club is moving in the right direction. But that belief can't be restored with vague statements or delayed decisions. It requires action. It requires transparency. And most of all, it requires leadership. Real leadership, not just titles and press releases. There's still time to salvage something from this season, but the margin for error is virtually gone. The next two matches could be pivotal. Win them, and perhaps Martin gets one last chance to turn things around. Drop points, and the calls for change will become deafening. More importantly, the pressure on Kavanagh will reach a point where inaction is no longer an option. And if he waits too long, he may not just lose his manager. He may lose the support of the Rangers faithful altogether. Because that's the real cost of this current mess. Not just in points or league position, but in belief. The belief that Rangers are a club run with ambition, with pride, with a plan. Right now, that belief is hanging by a thread. And unless something changes, fast, that thread is going to snap. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to get all the exclusive news about Rangers FC. Don't overlook any details about your beloved team. It's crucial for Rangers FC fans. In what's already sending shockwaves through Scottish football, whispers are growing louder that Lawrence Shankland, the Hearts striker who's been a thorn in defenses across the Premiership, has made the switch to Ibrox. The rumor mill is buzzing, with insiders hinting that the forward has put pen to paper and is now officially a Rangers player. If true, it's a move that could rewrite the balance of power north of the border. Shankland, known for his poacher's instinct and uncanny knack for finding the net at the most crucial moments, has long been linked with bigger sides. Hearts fans will surely feel a pang of betrayal, as the striker has been pivotal in their campaigns, netting consistently and giving their rivals sleepless nights. But Rangers, always on the lookout for clinical finishers, would seem to have landed a coup if these murmurs hold any truth. Speculation is rife about how soon he'll make his mark. Supporters are already imagining him leading the line at Ibrox, slicing through defenses with that signature predatory instinct. The old firm rivals will certainly be paying close attention. Shankland scoring against Celtic would be headline material, no doubt adding fuel to the fiery rivalry. The chatter among pundits is that this could be more than just a short-term fix. Some insiders are suggesting that Shankland's move signals a shift in strategy for Rangers, aiming to bolster their striking options with a player who thrives under pressure. Naturally, Hearts fans are lamenting the loss, while others in the league are bracing for the storm. Whether this is more than gossip, only time will tell, but one thing's for certain. The potential of Lawrence Shankland at Ibrox has already set tongues wagging. The anticipation, the debates, the hot takes, they're all part of the growing excitement. If he hits the ground running, we might just witness one of the most talked about transfers in recent Scottish Premiership history. Greetings, fans. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, as it's greatly appreciated by Rangers FC. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments section below. Until the next video, stay tuned.